A detective who's hit by a car is about to wake up in a century that doesn't quite seem like his own. Is he dead? Is he in a coma? Or is he just on another planet? Well, without further ado, let's get into today's review. Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another series review. And today's series review is none other than the hit detective slash sci-fi series Life on Mars. So, what is Life on Mars about? Well, we have this detective named Sam Tyler, and he's chasing a criminal down a street. But on his way after an investigation, he gets hit by a car. And after not being able to track down the killer, he ends up going back in time and reliving his own life in order to figure out exactly how the crime was committed and gotten away with. But to make matters worse, he ends up with a sergeant named D.I. Gene Hunter, who happens to be a bit of an outgoing and outspoken man who has his own opinions on the time and pretty much puts Sam in his place. Sam spends most of his time trying to avoid the subject of even being in this century. He believes he's gone crazy, he doesn't understand the fact that he is part of the detective squad, and really starts to question whether or not everything that he's seeing is real. When he starts going around the police station barking about the fact that apparently everything is absolute lunacy, Sam begins to draw attention to himself. Even the policewoman in the station begins to kind of laugh at him as she believes he's being silly. He eventually goes on to fall in love with this woman and of course does everything he can to protect her. However, his insanity gets the better of him and eventually he ends up killing himself. But not before he finally figures out the clue in the case he's been looking for. It turns out that the assailant slash murderer in the far future has done it for many years and slipped under the radar without getting caught by the police. Sam figures out, however, the reason he managed to get away with so many killings is because he used foam that was in a booth when they played music, and that is how he used it against his victims. He soundproofed the whole room in order that people couldn't hear their screams. Throughout the course of the series, Sam and D.I.G. Hunt end up constantly battling with each other and properly having a proper brawl. Fisticuffs, as some may say. Sam eventually becomes really good friends with the rest of the police squad after he stops barking on about being from the far future. Gene doesn't completely believe him, of course, because who would come from the future and go back in time? Sam also points out whatever reason he's there must be a point behind it, because of course nothing happens for no reason. Sam's delusions and constant nagging from the inside of the coma come across as apparitions, such as the young girl from the TV back in the 60s coming out of the TV and speaking to him, and other little voice whispers of his parents talking in his head. Him and Annie pretty much become inseparable, and eventually he decides to go back in time once again after solving the case in the future and live a happy life. But it does take him a long time to get to this conclusion after he constantly spends so much time trying to get back to the present day. However, when he does get back to the present day, he finally realizes that he has nothing to live for in modern times. His family are long dead and he is the only one left. And it seems like even his police department in the far future don't really take him as a respected police officer. If one thing that is taught along the way of Life on Mars, it's also the similarities between Sam and the old police officers of the past. He often has a go at a lot of the police officers during the course of this story, talking about them planting drugs on people and taking advantage and not using much evidence. But once they do try and play by his rules, he also accidentally slips up a couple of times along the way, which Gene Hunt pretty much calls him out on. Annie points out that she pretty much wants to help the police force be a respected organization once again. However, with Gene Hunt in charge, it does make it more of a struggle. Sam pretty much asks her why a lot of the guys in the station don't speak up to Gene, and she points out that they have a lot of dirt on each other, which makes it hard for them to have a better image and to go above their intendant. There's also a great episode in this where Sam pretty much has an argument with people down the street over the brawls that used to happen between football fans, and it turns out that an extremist group take advantage of the football rivalries in order to pretty much start a gang war. Another story goes on to talk about the negligence of using a bit of a belt in a factory, in which accidentally one of the members of the factory workers gets killed as the belt comes off and rips into them. This, of course, is not really anyone in particular's fault, and is all due to people not maintaining the machinery properly. Sam only has one major friend in this series, which happens to be a Caribbean barman who happens to know that Sam has come back in time. The barman pretty much tells Sam to live it up whilst he can, because you only live once. However, when Gene and anyone else comes into the pub, it turns out that the barman switches everything off just to pretty much fit in. Sam also begins to cause suspicion amongst people, as he's living in a time when racism is in the highs and a lot of communities have been split up between their own nationalities. So, when Sam begins to cook food that isn't necessarily considered the norm, people begin to question why he goes to the local corner shops, especially the ones that aren't fully British owned. Sam points out that what difference does it make, because at the end of the day, they're all human in the end. So, what did I think of Life on Mars as a whole? It's a great story, it's got some great complications in it, and it also has some great plot twists with Sam's family relations, and especially has a great plot twist on how well Sam Tyler really knew his own father, as towards the end of the series we find out that his father is part of a big drug bust, and this is why he grows up without his father. His relationship with Annie is absolutely sublime. The way that he tries to treat her with respect and honesty is what makes their relationship so compelling. Gene Hunt is a dislikable character in the beginning of the series, but as he goes on and we begin to get a little bit of his backstory, we finally begin to have a little bit of sympathy for him. And for that reason, overall, as all the overarching characters in the police force in this series, I have to solidly give this series an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next series review. Until then, goodbye, stay beautiful, and have an incredible night, day, or morning. Goodbye.